Kopijana Valapa Jaya Kiri Varadhari Jaya Giri Varadhari Kopijana Vallabha Jaya Kiri Varadhari Jaya Kiri Varadhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopijana Valapa Jaya Giri Vadari Jaya Giri Varadhari Kopijana Valapa Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Radhadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajadana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhavan Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jai Gaur Premanandi Haribo. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privadakacharya Ashtodhar Shri Srimad Lila Pravista Om His Divine Grace. Abhay Karananda Bhakti Founder Acharya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privadakacharya Ashtodhar Shri Srimad Lila Pravista Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Tirayet Nasta Praeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamash Loke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, Dhruva Maharaj returns home. We are reading today verses 37 through 40. The first verse, 37, has the purport, so we will all chant that together. Akarnyatma Jam Ayantam Samparetya Yatagatam Raja Na Shradhe Badram abhadrasya kuto mama karnyatma jam ayantam samparitya yatagatam rajana shradade bhajram abhadrasya kuto mama akarnyatma jam ayantam samparitya yatagatam rajana shradade bhajram abhadrasya kuto mama akarnyatma jam ayantam samaparitya yatagatam rajana shradade bhajram abhadrasya kuto mama. A little more. I can't see him. I can see you. Good. Mataji was there? Akarnya, having heard Atmajam, his son, Ayantam, coming back, Samparetya, after dying, Yata, as if, Agatam, coming back, Raja, King Uttanapad, Na, did not, Shradade, have any confidence, Badram, good fortune, Abhadrasya, of the impious, Kuta, whence, Mama, my. A little more. Good. When King Uttanapad heard that his son Dhruva was coming back home, as if coming back to life after death, he could not put his faith in this message, for he was doubtful of how it could have happened, how it could happen. He considered himself the most wretched, and therefore he thought that it was not possible for him to attain such good fortune. Everyone, let us say together, when King Uttanapad heard that his son Dhruva was coming back home, as if coming back to life after death, he could not put faith in this message, for he was doubtful of how it could happen. He considered himself the most wretched, and therefore he thought it was not possible for him to attain such good fortune. Report by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Dhruva Maharaj, a 5-year-old boy, went to the forest for penance and austerity, and the king could not at all believe that a small boy of such a tender age could live in the forest. He was certain that Dhruva was dead. He therefore could not fix his faith in the message that Dhruva Maharaj was coming back home again. For him, this message said that a dead man was coming back home. King Uttanapad thought that he was the cause of Dhruva's leaving. And thus he considered himself the most wretched. Therefore, even though it was possible that his lost son was coming back from the kingdom of death, he thought that since he was most sinful, it was not possible for him to be so fortunate to get back his lost son. Text 38. Shradaya Vyakyam Devarsher Harsha Vegna Darshitaha Varta Hartur Atipito Hanam Pradin Mahadanam. Although he could not believe the words of the messenger, he had full faith in the words of the great sage Narada. Thus he was greatly overwhelmed by the news, and immediately offered the messenger a highly valuable necklace in great satisfaction. Text 39 through 40. Sad asvam ratam aruya kartasvara parikskritam ramanai kula vidaischa paryasto matya bandubi sanka dundubi nadena brahma goshena venubi nischakrama paraturnam atma jabi shanot sukshla sanat sunot shuka. Then King Uttanapad, being very eager to see the face of his lost son, mounted a chariot drawn by excellent horses and bedecked with golden filigree. Taking with him many learned brahmanas, all the elderly personalities of his family, his officers, his ministers, and his immediate friends, he immediately left the city. As he proceeded in his parade, there were auspicious sounds of conch shells, kettle drums, flutes, and the chanting of Vedic mantras to incite all good fortune. Om Agyana Timarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Yakshuramitam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sadhujatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Rubias Chak Ripasandubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shriva Sadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpa Drumada Srimad Ratnagara Singha Sanasto Srimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Vistalabi Savyamano Smarami. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at the feet of the Transcendental Lord. Obeisances unto you, O spiritual master, O servant of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. You were so kindly preaching the message of Lord Sri Chaitanya Dev and are delivering these Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Then King Uttanapad being very, excuse me. When King Uttanapad heard that his son Dhruva was coming back home, as if coming back to life after death, he could not put his faith in this message, for he was doubtful of how it could happen. He considered himself the most wretched, and therefore he thought that it was not possible for him to attain such good fortune. Raja na Shradade Bhadram. When good fortune arises, when one actually comes in contact with Krishna consciousness, one can understand by comparison that everything else's value, words can't really explain, pales by comparison. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the perfection of religion. It is joyfully performed. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, an ever-increasing ocean of transcendental ecstasy. It's interesting to note here how King Uttanapad was thinking this glorious news, which at first he couldn't believe in his logical mind, to be compared to someone who is dead coming back to life. And of course, it's explained that because he was previously in his Great Depression and destitute mental state, visited by Narada Muni, who assured the king of Dhruva's all safety and good fortune, and how he will come back and he will be the most glorious devotee of the Lord, and ultimately the proper heir to the throne, that he will install Dhruva as this king, as we will see in due course of time. So, there are many places that you can see in Krishna's pastimes, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where something so logically inconceivable, how it could possibly happen, against all odds, it happens. And I want to bring forth a very wonderful example. It's the example of Rukmini being put in a situation where she has to marry not only someone who she doesn't like, but someone who's actually a demon and averse to the person that she's completely given her heart to with all faith and love, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the arrangements were made for her marriage, and so much she was being physically guarded and protected that it seemed impossible that Krishna could come and rescue her. She sent a letter with a Brahmin messenger to Krishna, expressing many things, her deep conviction and faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that she, as a princess and young marriageable girl, could only have Krishna as her eternal husband, soulmate, and love of her life, and of course, all of eternity. So, she gave instructions on what would be the best time to kidnap her, under what circumstances, and it seemed that how would he call it, that window of opportunity was eclipsing and closing. And then, at the right time, because Krishna understood, actually when the Brahmin messenger came, Krishna said, yes, as she is thinking of me, I am thinking of her. I cannot sleep at night because I'm constantly absorbed in thinking of the daughter of Vidarbha. And he knew of Rukmini's anxiety, and he sent the Brahmin messenger who Rukmini saw in the assembly with all the other personalities, and she could realize that Krishna had received the message and that indeed he is coming to kidnap her. And just before that time, she felt auspicious bodily symptoms, and she could understand that something glorious and auspicious was about to happen. And just as King Uttanapad here, he gave the messenger a highly valuable necklace. So it's described that that Brahmin messenger to Rukmini, she gave him a very valuable jewelry. And it is stated by Srila Prabhupada that such a Brahmin, benedicted by the goddess of fortune, will certainly always be in an opulent position of life. And we don't have to look any farther to understand the glorious example in this line of our own divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, who against all odds that we can understand now, the Kali Yuga odds, came here to rescue us, who are all dead people, to bring us from the dead back to life. Here is a little, we will take a little view. There is the wonderful concluding chapter of the first volume of the Leela Amrita entitled A Lifetime in Preparation. That title is called The Dream Come True. Srila Prabhupada, in one of his classes, recounting how his own life, how he was predicted at birth to be the great exponent of religion and cross the ocean at the age of 70 and open up 108 temples, how he met his spiritual master, and upon the very first meeting, he was instructed to preach this Krishna consciousness in the Western world. And so many difficulties, his family life, uncooperative, his own spiritual master's institution, infighting and amongst his godbrothers caused to the more or less splintering and dissolvement of his spiritual master's movement. World War II, the bombing of his own hometown, Calcutta, the terrible partition of India into Pakistan, Hindu-Muslim riots, the first so-called government. Now we're free. Indian independence, and we just celebrated Indian Independence Day. Was it 1947? So 78 years, we're free. To what? The first government. Religion is the opiate of the masses. We will make the factory the new temple. Prabhupada could not get anything going in India. Later, just some 5 years later, after Prabhupada left in 1965, in one of those most glorious pandals, I can't remember exactly which place, Bombay, New Delhi, or anyway. So there was some elder personalities at that time, 1970. Many personalities had lived through the Indian independence movement, etc. And at the hands of the British, with their very racist Anglo-Saxon white man's pride. There was even one very famous English writer, Rudyard Kipling. He wrote a poem, The White Man's Burden. That it is our burden as the white man to bathe the brown man in the blood of the Lamb of Christ and bring him to, anyway, you get the idea. So when they saw Srila Prabhupada bringing American and European beautiful white boys and girls, completely obeying his instructions and bowing down to him with all reverence, embracing the pure essence of their culture, they were so much moved to tears, and they were saying Swami Bhaktivedanta has gotten revenge for the thousands of years of subjugation we suffered at the hands of these foreigners. We have here Guru Gauranga Prabhu. He's visiting briefly, and amongst many of his wonderful devotional absorptions, he year to year follows Srila Prabhupada's voyage, all 35 days, where he is, what he was doing. He actually told me this morning that right now, today, in terms of when Prabhupada left on the voyage, the Jaladuta arrived in Cochin, which is the very bottom of India, and his books were loaded on before going forward into the Arabian Sea. And Prabhupada observed Janmashtami and cooked and served to the crew members. He noted in his diary, but Guru Gauranga was telling me that Prabhupada did not think that the next day, his own birthday, was so important, so there's no entry on that day. He arrived in Calcutta only a few days before the Jaladuta's departure. Although he had lived much of his life in this city, he now had nowhere to stay. It was as he had written in his Vrindavan Bhajan, I have my wife, sons, daughters, grandsons, everything, but I have no money, so they are a fruitless glory. Although in this city he had been so carefully nurtured as a child, those early days were also gone forever. Where are my loving father and mother gone to now? And where are all my elders who were my own folk? Who will give me news of them? Tell me who. All that is left of this family life is a list of names. You go to a cemetery, and if it's an active cemetery and they have newer graves, say within the last up to maybe 30 years ago, you'll see people come visit, they put flowers. But in the older part of the cemetery, born 1865, passed away 1930, forgotten. No one comes to visit. It's just a name. What to speak of if you go to the old colonial cemeteries, then it's simply an interest of people will do they'll rub on the grave and get what do you call that, you can it becomes like a historical kind of curiosity. But who this person was, maybe an historical footnote, but in terms of importance to you and your life. So all of that is left of this family life is a list of names. Of the hundreds of people in Calcutta whom Srila Prabhupada knew, he chose to call on a Mr. Shishir Bhattacharya, the flamboyant kirtan singer he had met a year before at the governor's house in Lucknow. So he wasn't a relative, but somehow he wanted to help. So he's staying in Calcutta for a few days, and Mr. Bhattacharya thought that Srila Prabhupada's leaving for America should make an important news story. He accompanied Bhaktivedanta Swami to all the important newspapers, the Hindustan Standard, the Amrita Bazar Patrika, several others. But no one thought that it was such an important thing that they would write a newspaper article. Prabhupada had only one photograph of himself, his passport photo. Finally, they visited the Danik Basmati, a local Basmati, a local Bengali daily which agreed to print a small article with Bhaktivedanta Swami's picture. The day before his departure, Srila Prabhupada traveled to nearby Mayapur to visit the Samadhi of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then he returned to Calcutta. He was ready. He had only a suitcase, an umbrella, and a supply of dry cereal. He did not know what he would find to eat in America. Perhaps there would be only meat. If so, he was prepared to live on boiled potatoes and the cereal. His main baggage, several trunks of his books, was being handled separately by Scindia Cargo. 203-volume sets. The very thought of the books gave him confidence. In one of Srila Prabhupada's telling of the story to his disciples and later, when ISKCON was established, and Yadu and Vishaka chose this little piece of Prabhupada saying what I'm about to tell you in the part of the Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all movie, where Srila Prabhupada is boarding the Jaladuta, and you see the actor sitting there with the bifocals, and said, when I finished volume 3 of the first canto, we had set, this is 1965, so as early as 1959, he had decided, I'm going to translate the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So when only the first canto was completed, then Guru Maharaj instructed me, now you go to America with just the first canto. And Prabhupada later said, I put everything in the first canto. If you simply read and study the first canto, that's enough for you to go back home, back to Godhead. The very thought of the books gave him confidence. And we see when Srila Prabhupada came, some of the first new young people to come, they bought the books and read them and were convinced of Srila Prabhupada's position and wanted to hear more from him. When the day came for him to leave, he needed that confidence. He was making a momentous break with his previous life, and he was dangerously old and not in strong health. Everyone is telling him, don't go. You have to convince Sumati Morarji, who ultimately gave him a free ticket. Why not a free ticket on Pan Am Airways and just do the journey in, 17, 18 hours? Why 5 weeks? You will die there. The people are not. His godbrother told him, there's no use in going to America. People don't go to meetings anymore. Everything is done by television. He was going to an unknown and probably unwelcoming country. To be poor and unknown in India was one thing. Even in these Kali Yuga days when India's leaders were rejecting Vedic culture and imitating the West, it was still India. It was still the remains of Vedic civilization. He'd been able to see millionaires, governors, the prime minister, simply by showing up at their doors and waiting. For such big people to give a donation to print some books, it's not a big thing. Here's some money for the sadhu. Thank you. Now leave me alone. Go away. But some of the best of those personalities, when Srila Prabhupada came back in triumph, they were so deeply, and of course they jump on the bandwagon. Yes, I helped Swami Bhaktivedanta. And then many other people who didn't, kind of come forward and, all right, engage them in Krishna consciousness. Their doors and waiting. A sannyasi was respected. The Srimad Bhagavatam was respected. But in America, he would be different. That's why it's very good that we go out in public. Our status as a devotee, our seniority, our reputation, we're known in the devotees, our community. But out there, no tradition of sadhus, no temples, no free ashrams. When Prabhupada was driven out of 94 Bowery Loft, he literally had nowhere to go. He was standing on the sidewalk at dusk, just before nightfall, in the most dangerous section of New York City. And Prabhupada made a pamphlet about his mission with his picture on the cover. We give him the flyer, Srimad Bhagavatam's India's Message of Peace and Goodwill. It was August 13th, and he's leaving just a few days before Janmashtami. What are we doing a few days before Janmashtami? We're getting ready. We're coming back to the temple. We're getting ready. We're stocking up. We're joyous. He is going literally into no man's land. The next day would be his own birthday. During these last years, he had been in Vrindavan for Janmashtami. In Vrindavan for Janmashtami. Many Vrindavan residents would never leave. They were old and at peace in Vrindavan. Bhaktivedanta Swami was concerned that he might die away from Vrindavan. That was why all the Vaishnava sadhus and widows had taken vows not to leave, even for Mathura. Because to die in Vrindavan was the perfection of life. And the Hindu tradition was that a sannyasi should not cross the ocean and go to the land of the Malechas. But beyond all that, even a consideration that you should die in Vrindavan and protect yourself. Do never leave Vrindavan. But beyond all that was the desire of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and his desire was non-different from that of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had predicted that the chanting of Hare Krishna will be known in every town and village of the world. Some 475 years ago, Srila Rupa Goswami has given this instruction as part of the nectar of instruction. Yes. Verse 9. The holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathuripur is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, because of Krishna's Rasa Leela pastimes. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radhakund stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarian prema of the Lord of Gokula, Sri Krishna. And Rupa Goswami says this is, what's the opposite of a declension? An ascension. Higher, 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 the highest. Best, bester, no, that's not right. Bestest. So, what is it? Perfect, more perfect, most perfect. Yeah. So intelligent. So the intelligent should be, I don't want, okay, this is good, but I want the better thing. Yes, Lord Chaitanya says to Ramananda Roy, that is very nice, but can you go a little higher? Yes, that's very nice, but I think there's something even better ahead, and my mind is thirsting for it. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radha Kund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? And Prabhupada says in his purport, paralleling what Rupa Goswami has said, he's highlighting the importance of Radha Kund by describing the great effort that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made to relocate it. It was lost after some 4,500 years. and then his instruction to his devotees, the 6 Goswamis, to develop Radha Kund. Srila Rupa Goswami has given much stress to Radha Kund because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire to find it. Who then would not give up Radha Kund to try to reside elsewhere? No person with transcendental intelligence would do so. So Srila Prabhupada is, in a sense, I can't think of a better word, disobeying that instruction or neglecting that instruction. No, he is incorporating that instruction and taking it to a much, much more higher and practically resultive conclusion. You stay at Radha Kund, who are you benefiting besides yourself? But if you take the glories of the holy Dham in all of its levels, from Mathura to Vrindavan Forest, to Govardhan Hill, to Radha Kund, in your heart, and you give to others who have the same, eligibility, if given the right circumstance and actual mercy. We do our sadhana, but ultimately we are praying and hoping to become Kripa Siddha by mercy, by the mercy of the spiritual master. One can cross over this insurmountable ocean of repeated birth and death and achieve the mercy of Krishna. The importance of Radha Kund, however, cannot be realized by other Vaishnava sampradayas. So similarly, the importance of preaching the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cannot be understood by those in other sampradayas. Nor can persons uninterested in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya understand the spiritual importance and divine nature of Radha Kund. Thus, Radha Kund is mainly worshipped by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada showed by his practical example that Vrindavan is meant to be preached all over the world. And now, by the great potency of Srila Prabhupada, he has redirected the world back to Sri Vrindavan Dham through the Krishna Balaram Mandir, which prior to his leaving Vrindavan, you see in the recounting of Shama Sundar Prabhu, for example, he was one of the first devotees to come with Prabhupada. It looked like it was like deserted. It looked kind of like bombed out. It was just like rubble everywhere. It was like no one was there. It was neglected. It was dirty. Now it is a premier place of preaching. So now, practically speaking, the reason to go to Vrindavan is to preach the glories of Vrindavan. But ultimately, our movement is all over the world, and actually all over the universe. And Prabhupada said, as early as 1967, Vrindavan is sentiment only. Our real work, field work, is all over the world. What with great difficulty I got out of the country. Some way or other, by Krishna's grace, I got out so that I could spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Otherwise, to remain in India, it was not possible. I wanted to start a movement in India, but I was not at all encouraged. The black cargo ship, small and weathered, was moored at dockside, a gangway leading from the dock to the ship's deck. So it's the in-sleeve on the, right? And I think they have like one of the diorama in the museum, Prabhupada Samadhi Museum in Vrindavan. Prabhupada is walking up the gangplank. For thousands of years, Krishna Bhakti had been known only in India, not outside, except in twisted, faithless reports by foreigners. The British telling of the Juggernaut, for example. And the only Swamis to have reached America had been non-devotees, Mayavadi impersonalists. But now Krishna was sending Bhaktivedanta Swami as his emissary. Now only the ocean storms separated you from us. On our side, the hour was very late, but not too late. No one was waiting for you in exactly the form you were coming, yet we were aching for you nonetheless. As parched land awaits rain, as a lost child awaits the mother, as a lonely lover awaits the beloved, as the soul aches for God, the dumb tongues stuck, unable to utter Krishna. The blind groped, the mad went madder, incurring reactions, and at every moment, more jivas fell off the cliff of human life down into the abyss of Tamagun. Inching from the weathered pier, the black-hulled Jaladuta moved toward the seas, bearing him to America. By the law of the Almighty, the ship floated in water. By His will only, the clouds in the skies moved. Out of fear of Him, the planets were spinning in tremendous orbits. And by His inscrutable, sweet will, the pure devotee was coming to rescue the damned. Karnyatma jamayantam samparetya takagatam rajana shradade bhadram abhadrasya kutomaha. When King Uttanapad heard that his son Dhruva was coming back home as if coming back to life after death, he could not put his faith in this message, for he was doubtful of how it could happen. He considered himself the most wretched, and therefore he thought it was not possible for him to attain such good fortune. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
So it seems like there's like a paradox where we want to go to Vrindavan to be able to connect with the Lord, but then Prabhupada, the highest devotee of the Lord, is leaving Vrindavan to connect everyone with the Lord. And so what is the relationship between, like, if we don't have Krishna, how can we give Krishna and preach? And therefore, should we preach or should we try to cultivate our
You have to practice,
consciousness?
like everything. You start in a position of weakness, and by, what do you call that, when you work out? Yeah, well, no. Build up. The Prabhupada, he created, actually, what was, of course, Prabhupada wanted to try to get a building here in New York City, 143 West 72nd Street. But what immediately Prabhupada wanted to make a second temple. Where did he want to have it? Who can say? Vrindavan. He wanted to make a Vrindavan house. He wanted to create a place in Vrindavan that his disciples can come and visit to practice like that. So those who are preachers, they visit the holy dhams and they stay for a certain period of time. I would say that when you're young and you have a lot of strength and energy to practically, pound the streets and work out there, that you can spending like a few weeks, a month is sufficient. Actually, Prabhupada created the Mayapur Vrindavan Gorpanim Festival, which in total was like 3 weeks. Become inspired and go back and preach vigorously in a purified, more elevated, and enlightened state. Do that, repeat the process. Of course, there's something to be said about doing the needful for necessity. Prabhupada was aghast if devotees would close the temple or stop worshiping the deities to even visit him in another temple. Prabhupada would come to one temple, and everyone in the region would come, and a certain temple, to do that, they shut everything down. So this is a perennial transcendental anxiety: who, what, when, why, where, and how. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi